Alstroemeria is a beautiful ornamental flowering plant that is very popular in British gardens. Also known as Peruvian lily, though it is not actually from the lily family, it blooms for several months of the year from April right up until November. It is a long-living perennial that comes back year after year. Alstroemeria grows from rhizome tubers which form in clumps. These grow quite close to the soil surface whilst their roots drill down further into the soil. In this video I will show you exactly how to divide these clumps to make multiple plants whilst not significantly impacting on the parent clump. We'll then look at the results in detail. I'm not sure of the variety of my particular Alstroemeria, though it looks like the variety called Indian Summer. It is a bright orange colour and stems grow to over 50 centimetres tall before eventually collapsing. So here you can see my clump of Alstroemeria. I originally transplanted this about 5 or 6 years ago, so it has had a long time to establish. In fact, I've already done this division process a couple of times now and given plants away to my neighbours, so this will be the third time that I am doing this. This year the growth has been so strong it's actually displaced a paving slab that I had only repointed a couple of years ago, and I'm now going to have to do that all over again. In the meantime, I've moved the slab out of the way and exposed the rhizomes of the Alstroemeria. And as you can see here, the stems were fighting their way through and around that paving slab. And here you can see closely the newly exposed rhizomes. There are lots of them, and this is important because we are going to be cutting them into big clumps. All the top stems are not important, and we'll deal with those later. So now I'm going to make the first cut, and I'm choosing to make a cut of roughly 4 to 6 inches, that's 10 to 15 centimetres, by 8 to 10 inches or 20 to 25 centimetres in size. So this is a pretty big clump. Using my sharp hand spade, I'm cutting straight downwards about 6 to 10 inches or 15 to 25 centimetres to ensure I get the whole rhizome depth undisturbed. You can hear me struggling as it is quite a strenuous task. Plus I'm doing this with one hand while the other is holding the camera. Another complicating factor in this case was the growth is right up against the concrete base of that paving, so I'm also having to tease it out of the concrete. But I eventually manage it, so here you can see, when I get the foliage out of the way, a fairly decent sized rhizome clump. And this is what a single rhizome piece looks like. It's quite satisfying to handle, really. So now it's time to pot this clump up, and I'm using a medium-sized bucket, and you can see it takes up most of the space in it. All that remains now is to cover with some fairly decent soil and then to water it. Now you mustn't waterlog it, but its initial watering is essential to reduce the transplant shock and give it a good chance to re-establish. So now, having covered it, I have to do something about these damaged stems, and the best thing to do is to cut them off. So here I'm simply cutting them off with a pair of scissors. I've left a couple of small stems at the top, and these may turn green and progress. If not, I'll cut them off in a few days. So that's the first bucket done. Repeating the process for the second clump, and again, to be fair to it, the rhizome put up a good struggle, but I got a nice big chunk out of it. And here underneath you can still see more rhizome pieces scattered over a wide area. Look at the huge size of this clump. It's a really good size and just fits into the medium-sized bucket. It's the same procedure as before, cover and trim. For a change, and as an experiment, I wanted to see if individual rhizome pieces will root and grow. Here I'm placing several individuated pieces in a small pot and will then cover. We'll see later how this pot performs. Back to the main process, and I just want to get one more clump. This one I'm scraping off the side of the paving slab, and it looks like I wasn't able to dig too deep into it, but it is still a nice large coherent piece. Note the broken rim of the bucket. I want you to be sure that these plant divisions and the results are authentic, unlike some other gardening channels that show you a fake process or don't even show you before and after evidence. In this video I'm showing the process from start to finish, as you will shortly see. In this last one I've left a little more of the foliage on, and we'll see if this makes any kind of difference. But for the time being, these are the 4 pots of our Alstroemeria divisions. So here we are now, some 14 weeks later. These are the 3 main buckets containing the 3 large clumps of Alstroemeria rhizomes from earlier in the video. I have to say I'm pretty pleased with the progress of these. The foliage has grown spectacularly and is rich and lush. And we also have a couple of open flowers that have put on a great show for us at just the right time. Let's have a look at these one by one. This is bucket number 1. Lots of good growth of foliage ranging from 20 to 40 centimeters in length, and I'm confident it will soon flower. Similarly with bucket number 2. Lots of good strong foliage, which again I think will start to flower in the next few weeks. Bucket number 3 is the one I mentioned earlier, which has the broken rim, and here you can see that same broken rim. This is also the one in which I left a little extra of the foliage at the time of the transplant. I don't think that really made much difference in the progress of this one relative to the other two as I watched them progress. It just so happens that this is the one that has decided to flower first. Overall, a spectacular success on these 3 rhizome clump divisions. I've brought that last pot indoors so we can examine it carefully. Rummaging around in the soil, I'm finding all the rhizomes, but they have done absolutely nothing. No roots, no growth, no progress. So this we can call a spectacular failure. I even found the very first rhizome that I identified in the video earlier, and that has done nothing too. From this I can confidently conclude, given that they were done at the same time as the clumps in the buckets and were covered in the same rich soil, that doing them individually does not work. I suspect that taking larger clumps means the inner rhizomes are protected and which then develop, whilst the outer rhizomes are perhaps sacrificed and are eventually replaced. I can't be sure, but doing them in larger clumps is the best way for sure. Thanks for watching. See you next time.